Monday, March the 13th, Commission meeting. We will get started here by, first of all, taking a roll call vote and making sure that we have quorum, and then we will proceed. If I could start with Dr. Christy Halbert. Thank you. Ben Grove.
Okay.
Thank you. Dan McGrew.
Here.
Matthew Reddish.
Present.
And Patrick Wren.
Here.
Thank you. Showing all of our members are here. Very, very much appreciated. My name's Roxana Gamusio. I am the Executive Director with the Tennessee Athletic Commission, and we are getting started right at 2 p.m. Notice of this meeting was posted, including the date, time, and location, was posted to the Commission's website on March 14th of 2022. Additionally, the agenda for this meeting was posted on March the 7th, 2023. The first item, the members have all been sent the agenda ahead of time. If there are any changes to make, I welcome those. Otherwise, we would need a motion to adopt the agenda as it is the first item on your presentation as well. Thank you. Do we hear a second?
Here. Second.
We have a motion by Christy Halbert and a second by Patrick Wren. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? None. The agenda is accepted as it's been presented. Next on your iPads is the September meeting minutes. We did not have a commission meeting in December, so the last minutes that we need to approve would be the September. If there are any changes to it that you see, please let me know. Otherwise, we will need a motion to accept and proceed.
I make a motion to accept the September minutes.
We have a motion by Dan McGrew to accept. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Matt Reddish. Any, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on our agenda, we will proceed with the appearing before the board. I will let everybody take a minute to get to your iPads and our appearing before the board. Start on page 7 of your presentation if you'd like to take a minute to take a look. You have before you a presentation that was sent to the Commission office by Adam Rohrbach with BKFC Regulatory Affairs. Adam is on the call through Teams to participate with us. He has also asked for some assistance, and we've got individuals here in person. Also on behalf of Bare Knuckles Fighting, able to answer any questions. You have before you the information that they have put together for Bare Knuckles Fighting with his team, and we welcome any questions that the commissions have, as well as research that our legal attorney, Pam Spicer, has conducted, and so this is a good opportunity for us to look at what Adam has put together. And then we do also have one other individual, Corey Williams, later on the documents on your iPads, who has put his items together. He has experience himself fighting in bare knuckles fighting, and so those are the two pieces that you have before you. And if you have any questions or items, if not, we do have someone here in person that also would like to explain a little bit about it. Red.
Good morning, or good afternoon, should I say. I'm excited, so I got the time wrong. But I am Jenny Savage, Jennifer Clausius of Tennessee, born and raised here. I was originally an MMA fighter with a professional record of 4-3, and I had decided in 2020, December, to join the BKFC. It has been nothing short but just an exciting ride. I've been embraced by everybody, and I could say that for me, it has been safer than MMA. I just want to be an advocate, and I'm here for any questions, and I'm just here to get the sport legalized.
You say that it's safer than MMA in what way?
Well, I would say in concussions, in our hands, injuries, I've been injured far more so far in my 4 fights, going on 5 now, than in MMA than I have in my career in BKFC. I've had a broken nose where it was fractured, and it healed just as good as it did in MMA. I've actually been cut in MMA by knees, elbows. I've lost teeth in MMA, and I have everything intact as of right now.
When was your last bare knuckle fight?
September of last year, and in about 11 days, I'll be fighting for the world title, representing Tennessee.
Where's that going to be?
That's going to be in Norfolk, Virginia.
What weight do you fight?
115. I originally started at 125, and that's when I got my nose fracture, but I do not plan on coming back to that high weight division. I'm only 5'2", so I went up.
Okay, you talk about the your hands wrapped. How much gauze do you use? Do you use gauze and tape, or what kind of wraps do you use?
Well, what we do is we use gauze and tape about 1.5 inches from our knuckles, or I would say an inch from our knuckle, about approximately here. And we protect our thumb. It's wrapped around our thumb. We don't have any gauze showing or any of that, similar to MMA. And I on my own, I do my own hand conditioning prior to training, which my hands have been healthy as can be.
On your last fight, did you win your last fight?
Absolutely, I won in the first round, first 38 seconds.
Thank you. Well, congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so you would like to see bare knuckle fighting in Tennessee. Why in Tennessee? If you can go to Virginia and some other places, why Tennessee?
I believe that it could bring a really good amount of opportunities for all the fighters to give it a shot, possibly. It also gives a breath of life, I feel, into MMA and boxing together. I think that it is, honestly, it's been life-changing for me in comparison to MMA. They definitely take care of us. If we deliver what we're supposed to and be the professionals that we are, we proceed, we fight, we come to fight, and we come serious in our training. I believe that it's a good thing as far as opportunity-wise, and it's safe, and from my experience.
In your estimate, about how many other bare knuckle boxers are there in the state of Tennessee, or do you know?
I believe that there's at least 20 or less. I know that there are 5 that I know of. One is from Nashville. Oh, I think his name is Rayvon Baxter. He's had 2 fights. There's another fighter. Forgive me for trying to remember their names.
Course.
Both of them have had a pretty good record. I do know that, oh man, I'm trying to remember his name because he's such a good fighter and he's a really good representative of this as well.
Well, tell me this. Were there any amateur bare knuckle fights or anything?
No, we only have the pro, and I believe that you've got to have like, background. They do extensive work. We also have the bare knuckle tryouts, so that way we could see if people are fit for it or not, because sometimes we'll have grapplers or, there's certain people of MMA that will come in, and they tend to do a little bit better than boxers, I believe, but sometimes they'll be coming in with their heads, so they might not want them to come in right away until they can get their feet wet or, get their records established in MMA.
What do the bare knuckle tryouts consist of?
I personally have not been there, but from what I've seen on the app, because they air it on the app, the BKFC app, they test out their wit by having them perform their cardio. They have like a measuring, I want to say like they measure their punch power. And they have a lot of the veterans of BKFC that come in and overlook, and they say, well, that guy's got talent, or that guy, maybe should come back the next time. But it does seem that they do a pretty good job at vetting and seeing if they are good enough to join our promotion.
Do you train with gloves?
I train with gloves, yes, sir. And I do have certain things that I do, like I tap my hands, I hit boards, not crazy, but I do it to condition my hands. I use sand and rice. I make sure that my hands are definitely thickened, like my skin and everything, and it never gives me any issues.
And looking at the BFK rules, it appears that there is a ringside doctor.
Yes.
And that you see that doctor after your match. What is that post-bout check? What is that like?
So actually in the fight, he will stop the fight and check us if he needs to. Dr. Musi is by far the most greatest doctor I've had to deal with in the sport of fighting. He gives us these concussion tests. I believe that they are called the King Devitt test, and we take one prior to the fight and we take one after. And what it is it tests to see if we have concussions. They immediately take us to the back. They suture us if they need. They stitch us up if we need right then and there. And if we need to go to the hospital, we go right away. There's no hesitation whatsoever.
If I remember correctly, y'all actually have two doctors.
Yes,
There's
we do.
a neurologist and a regular doctor that can help with the cuts and things like that.
Yes, we do.
Sir, my name is David Feldman. I'm the president.
Do you know how
And
many states currently allow bare knuckle boxing?
I wish I had
That was actually in here. It's 15.
I'm sorry, did you say it's 15
I remember reading that in
Okay.
the
in the paperwork?
information they gave
Okay.
us. Yeah.
Dana, stop us if at any point Adam raises his hand or wants to, add to the questions from our commission members. I think you can unmute him as needed, and we'll make sure, hopefully, the echo's gone away.
He raised his hand. She was talking.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Roxanne, I did have another question. I'm not sure if there's a representative here that can answer this one, but the infographic that's provided labeled bare knuckle fighting compared to already sanctioned combat sports, do we have the citations for all of these claims as they're made about boxing and MMA, for example?
And all we have is what you have in front of you that Adam provided. But Adam, if you will go ahead and unmute yourself and maybe answer regarding the sheet that you presented with some statistics. That question's coming from Commissioner Christy Halbert.
Thank you for the question, Commissioner Halbert. And yes, we can provide the citations. They were just too lengthy to put on this one sheet. We took the PSI test from several different, some articles that have been published, and then the concussion rate, hand fracture rate, facial lacerations, those all come from Dr. Muzzy. And he can explain those because he's a doctor a lot better than I can as to his methodology on that. But I can definitely email you the ones that we have.
Is he on the call, Dr. Mussey?
He is.
I just unmuted myself, if you can all hear me.
That is loud as it.
This is Dr. Muti. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm sorry, there was a bit of echoing going on. I believe I sent, we published two papers. I've published two papers, one in the Journal of Oral Maxillofacial Surgery and the other in the Journal of Sports Medicine, which shows our injury pattern. I have a database now. It has about 1,000 fighters, and those citations would obviously be referenced to our own articles. And also there was articles by Zazrin and Loosemore, and well as Callis, which are those citations are available in the. I think I sent y'all a PowerPoint. This was quite some time ago, as well as the two papers that we've published. Those can obviously send those again if you'd want. I can speak to our injury pattern for just a bit if you'd like. This includes, we have now about 10,016 fighters that I've attended with BKFC. We have a concussion rate of about 4.5%, and I'll just say a facial fracture rate of 3.9%. Now, of that, represents 40 facial fractures in over 1,000 fighters. 20 of those are nasal fractures. So just to put that in perspective, and our nasal fracture rate is lower than one sees in boxing or mixed martial arts. In terms of hand fractures, it's about 2.8%. Versus boxing is a little higher. Well, I'm not going to say they're higher because they're close enough that you can't argue there's a statistical significance. Jenny mentioned fighters that were sent to the hospital. We have sent, of the 1,016 fighters, we have sent 16 fighters to the, or let me correct that. We have sent approximately 22 fighters to the hospital. Only 16 of those have been for traumatic brain injury, which in all the cases, there was no intracranial pathology. We had 10 fighters that we just sent for facial fracture, one to be seen immediately, a couple for a eyelid laceration that we weren't comfortable repairing on site because we didn't have the proper equipment for that, and one for which is called a hyphema, which is just some bleeding in and around the eye.
Room 3, incoming to PACU with Dr. Brannan's patient. Room 3, incoming to PACU. Thank you.
Okay, I apologize for that.
I had another question for Dr. Messi. Is concussion defined as, is this a clinical diagnosis there at ringside? Is it failure of the King test, or how do you come to that determination?
That's a great question. I can go through some of that data with you. We do both, actually, ma'am. We've had, if you look at our King Devic testing right now we've only been doing King Devic testing for like 298 fighters worth. We started that, I forget exactly when, but 298 fighters ago. On our King Devic testing, the King Devic test has been positive 4 times. So that's a 1.3% rate. There's been 12 clinical concussions diagnosed at ringside. So in other words, we've had 8 negative King Devic tests that we've diagnosed a concussion with clinical criteria. And we've outlined that in a British Journal of Sports Medicine article I published a couple years ago. I don't think you have that. We can send that if you'd like, but it's just the standard diagnoses. Now, there's been 4 times when there's been that I've diagnosed a concussion that the King Devic was positive. You can interpret that a couple different ways. The King Devic test has about a 90% to 86% sensitivity rate, so the clinician will pick up a few more. Personally, I think what's going on is the concussions that I've diagnosed have a fairly strict criteria, and by the time they get to the back room, and this is usually done within a half an hour or so, they've recovered from any symptoms that they have had.
Is there any follow-up testing at maybe 24 hours or 48 hours after the fight takes place?
What I do is the fighters that have been concussed, that frankly, anyone who's had a significant injury, whether it's been a concussion, a facial fracture, whatever the case may be, I will follow up and personally talk to them. No, I don't do repeat King Devic testing just because logistically it'd be difficult. But we've had no one, actually, we've been lucky. We've had no one with that's had a post-concussive syndrome, or I guess it's post-concussion with persistent symptoms. And we've had no significant, like say, brain trauma.
Question would be for Pam Spicer. Is it still Spicer? Yeah, okay. So they quoted rules in here that they say that the commission could allow the bouts under. I mean, do you agree that's within our purview if we were to make a motion that we could adopt these rules? And also, I mean, do we need to have like a bout pending, or would we, could we like unilaterally implement these rules for bare knuckle fighting? It kind of sounded like maybe, talked about impracticality and hardships and things in there. So I'm curious if we would actually need a request to hold an event in order to even waive those.
Thank you for the question. I was going to bring that to the commission's attention. I think the issue is before we could get to whether or not we would be able to allow bare knuckle boxing under a set of rules that's been provided to us, the issue is those rules, some parts of those rules don't comply with our statute. So I think the issue would be, as I would read the section of the rule, is that when you're talking about allowing someone, bare knuckle, to come in under their own set of rules, the issue is those rules would have to comply with our statute. And I do not advise the commission to kind of pick and choose within the packet of rules. That's going to cause a lot of confusion with the people on the ground working those events. To give you some examples, on the first page, under the medical requirements for licensing, the rules that have been provided to us for bare knuckle list all bare knuckle fighters over the age of 40, and our statute is 35. So that is a huge component that would not be in compliance with our statute. I would advise the commission against carving out sections of the rules. That makes sense? No, in other words, I would advise against just carving out this particular part of the rules, because then there are other parts of the rules that also don't comply with our statute.
I guess this question might be more for Roxanne. I mean, has there been any discussions with legislators about bare knuckle boxing? I mean, I think like the statutes are pretty clear that they task us with regulating MMA, kickboxing, and boxing. It kind of seems like a fourth subcategory. So I'm curious if there's been any discussions, or I know sometimes the commissions can request legislation and things like that. Just curious if any of that's happened.
Currently, we would not propose for legislation to change. If the lobby group or the industry participated and reached out, then that would obviously have moved forward. It has not, and so the interest has come back before us. And we do think that the majority of the changes would need to be made through rule, that the law definition of boxing might be ample enough to fit it in, but Pam and legal would have to do some more research so that whatever we draft, as she says, we don't pick and choose, but we actually make sure that it all falls in line with our statute and then move those rules forward.
Can anybody from Bare Knuckle FC comment on, I know as far as, this commission actually making money, it would be on obviously permits, but also I think television contracts and attendance, tickets sold, things like that. Is there any general idea as to, if this would be profitable for us? I know, for example, if we have to have a bunch of rule changes, that's not exactly free. Have to pay for the attorney's time. And so I'm just curious, I mean, would this be like a money-making proposition for the commission? I don't know if anyone can really comment on that or not.
Am I unmuted?
I hear you.
Okay. My name is David Feldman. I'm the president and founder of Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. To answer your question, yes, our average ticket sales have went from about 1,000 to, scaled up to 1,800 to 2,500. Now we're at about 4,000 tickets average per show. So you would definitely make ticket revenue, ticket tax revenue from that. We also do some of our fights. We're working out our television deals right now as well, and there you would also make a television tax. I think that's in Tennessee as well. So there is definitely opportunities to create tax revenue through Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship.
I mean, I guess as a follow-up, if the commission went through the steps of changing rules, I think it's 6 to 9 months usually to get a rule change. I mean, there's no guarantee that you would come to the state. I mean, are you kind of doing this at a lot of states, or is this more like you've targeted Tennessee as somewhere you really want to do business, because I'd hate to go through the process and then, not get an actual event here, because that would just be, not a good use of our fiscal resources, which are pretty limited as I understand them.
Sure. Absolutely. Great question. Our marketing team has told us that Tennessee is within our top 5 states of app subscribers. It's definitely a place that we want to be at. We have fighters in surrounding states, and a lot of fighters inquire from Tennessee to fight for us. But since we don't have fights in Tennessee, we don't contract a lot of those right now because we have a lot of different fighters from other states. That being said, I mean, I don't know what type of guarantee I can do, but when we had Louisiana pass us, I had to guarantee them 2 shows in the year on paper, and I delivered those actually in the first 6 months, and I delivered those. I wouldn't want to promise you 2 shows in 6 months, but I would definitely be able to promise you 2 shows in a year.
Thanks for commenting on that. I personally appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I have another comment just for the benefit of the commission and the people present and on the call. As it relates to the rules, I believe we would have to create a set of rules for bare knuckle boxing or bare knuckle fighting, and not change or carve it into our rules for boxing, kickboxing, mixed martial arts. And as Mr. Reddish spoke, you all are aware, that can take 6-9 months to a year. I would have to bring a draft set before you. There'd have to be discussion about that. So that would take some time, definitely. And also, it was mentioned about the statutory definitions. We have definitions for boxing, kickboxing, and MMA. Without a statutory change, bare knuckle would need to fit into one of those statutory definitions. As it was mentioned, it appears that it would fit into the boxing definition as long as the combat is competing with fist only.
I read in the materials that are provided that there's going to be a rule packet presented at the Association of Boxing Commissions. Is that definitely on their agenda, or is that something that you're just kind of hoping will occur this summer?
Adam, you want to chime in on that? There is a bare knuckle boxing committee for the Association of Boxing Commissions. They did a presentation at last year's convention. I know they're doing another one at this year's convention. They handed down a bunch of rule recommendations, not mandates, but recommendations that any commission that sanctions or regulates bare knuckle fighting to follow.
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I am a member of the Bare Knuckle Rules and Regulations Committee through the ABC, and it is our goal to have those voted on at the convention this summer. We are working towards that. I think we have one or two votes left, and then just the writing of them. So as far as we know, we are going to be presenting those for adoption. And then if I could take a minute and just, Attorney Spicer, you had mentioned something like, the 35-year-olds for the EKGs and the MRIs. The rules we sent you are just rules that we use internally, or if we're self-regulating, or when we go to a state. If we go to a state and the rules are 35 for MRIs and EKGs, we have no issues abiding by the state commission's guidelines, if that makes sense. So anything in our rules that wouldn't fit into your rules, we could tailor so they would. And, just to kind of piggyback on what you said about it falling under your boxing, your boxing definitions, your boxing definitions don't require a covering of the glove. And I know one thing we did in Florida when we first started out there was, we have a sleeve of a type of a glove that doesn't cover the knuckles. So, we can always, again, tailor our rule set to meet yours. However, that would be, if that would get us there quicker, I'm not sure. That would be up to you guys. But, anything in our rule set that your rule set, would oversee this, we would certainly do that.
I appreciate that. I was just pointing out one example. There are some others regarding the presence of physicians. We have the additional component of the presence of an ambulance, which is in our statute. In addition, your weigh-in allows for 72 hours and then an additional weigh-in. And in our statute, under 402, ours is within, I think, 24 hours. So I was just pointing out the age difference, but there are some other differences as well.
Yeah,
And when you talk about
absolutely. And
statutory differences, I think that's when we get into, if this was something that we were going to consider allowing, we would need to likely create our own set of rules.
no, and I completely agree. Before I joined BKFC, I was the commissioner in the state of Kansas for 7 years. So I've been on
Have you
both
ever
sides.
encountered resistance at either the ABC conferences or at states who decide to do rule changes and allow these events? I know part of the rulemaking, I think, getting it through quickly relies on people not showing up here and objecting to the rules and things along those lines. So I'm curious if you've ever encountered any kind of resistance from other organizations or the public or anything like that.
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, I think anytime a new sport or something comes into an industry, you're always going to get some pushback and kickback from established, sports and promotions. But as far from a legal standpoint, not that I know of, but Dave might be able to answer that better.
No, I do. I mean, obviously not everything is for everybody. So not every state was willing to regulate and sanction this at first. Now it just seems like, I don't want to use this analogy, but I'm going to use it. They're kind of falling down like dominoes now because of the work that we put in and the medical team that we have with Dr. Don Musi, making sure that everybody is cared for and our injury rate is where it is, and being able to document that. So I think that at this time, we don't have really much opposition at all. Really, I think we're in a very, very good trajectory right now.
This is Pam Spicer again. The only other thing I would mention is that it was mentioned that there are 15 states that allow for bare knuckle boxing. I did conduct some research. I did not come up with 15 states. I'm not saying that there's not 15 states, but I would be interested to know whether or not you know which states offhand, or if you can email us that information so we know specifically which states are allowing bare knuckle boxing. And in addition to that, I would want to know which states are allowing for it by rule, meaning that they have created rules for bare knuckle boxing, and then if they do not have rules, how are they allowing it?
It actually is 15 states, so good job on that. And I can read them off for you now, or I can email them to you along with whether it's by rule or by statute. So however you want them, you let us know.
I think an email is fine. If you can email the executive director, that would be great.
I will do that. Thank you.
Along with, so will you all be commenting on the rule differences between your organization and the rules that we have in place in Tennessee? And if so, I would like comment on why your female fighters are only allowed a maximum of 2-minute rounds.
I can comment on that. All our rounds are 2-minute rounds, male and female. All of our fights are 5 2-minute rounds.
I'm just looking at Section 4 about requirements. Male contestants, no more than 3 minutes in length. Female contestants, no more than 2 minutes in length.
That is from a former draft, and I apologize, but all of our fights are 5 2-minute rounds.
I think that's the next item that Corey Williams did his research. He may be on the call, I'm hoping. So if you've got a split, hopefully, in your iPads on page, and I'll point that out. So
Yeah,
bare knuckle fight that we're going through right now ends on page 26, and Corey Williams' research starts on page 28. And I think that's the one you're looking at. Does that sound right? Now, Corey Williams, hopefully he's on the call. He's actually fought in bare knuckles also. So it could be that something has changed from when he did it. We'll ask him when he gets a chance. But that's a very good question.
I
Thank
am
you.
here.
my turn comes up, I am here if anybody has direct questions. I'll fill in when David is done.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I believe in the rules that I sent you, it does say the length of each round in a bare knuckle fight shall last 2 minutes in duration. So I just know that's what BKFC fights under. The men and the women fight the same.
Okay, thank you.
But yes, I'd be happy to answer any other rule issues or anything like that. Just let me know.
I'd like to ask, are there any other states that have made their own rules as far as bare knuckle fighting, other than what you have here?
There are states that allow other promotions to fight under different, maybe some time differences, but as far as I know, the rest of the rules are fairly standard, other than maybe some time differences.
So are you saying that then Tennessee would be the only state that would have their own set of bare knuckle rules?
No, I believe all other 15 states have their own rules, but they are in a, I would say within 95% in alignment with ours. I mean, I wrote the rules in Kansas, so I kind of know what those say. And then the other states that have come in, I don't want to say I've worked with them, but people within our, our circle have kind of worked with them and guided them through as to what, Mr. Feldman's vision for bare knuckle fighting is. And, like I said, other than some timing issues, we're pretty much in agreement. All the states are in agreement on pretty much everything.
And Mr. McGrew, just to reiterate, that's sort of the question that I've presented is he is going to hopefully email us the list of states and then specifically which states have their own rules. I think that would be extremely helpful to this commission.
I think for myself personally, I'd like to see if unified rules get passed this summer, and hopefully if they do, that would make your drafting job a lot easier. So I don't see any need personally to make a motion at this time, and hopefully when we meet next or the time after next, we'll have like a sample unified rules that hopefully multiple states are adopting. It's kind of how I personally feel. I wouldn't want to go through the effort of having Pam draft things now if we just have to do another rule packet this summer.
And Mr. Ruddish, and someone can correct me, I think the meeting is the end of July, the ABC meeting. Someone maybe on the phone can clarify that, but I think that meeting is the end of July. So then our meeting, the next meeting after that for this commission, hopefully we would be able to discuss those unified rules if they are presented at the national conference.
Yes, ma'am. Those are in July. Those are in July in Las Vegas.
We have in the past, yes.
I don't see that there's going to be a big difference in the rules from the ones that have been adopted by other states. If you guys wanted to proceed now, you're probably going to be pretty close to what comes out of the unified rules meeting this summer.
And I can send a list of the recommendations that were presented to the body. And I can tell you, as someone on the committee who is kind of helping draft these, the final rules are going to be very similar.
For me personally, I'd kind of like to do a vote because I think that being one of the Is it not on? Yeah, for us to be one of the first 20 states to have our own rule set and to already be working with them just gives them more incentive to come back to Tennessee as well. And during last month that we do need extra revenue to help pay for the smaller events that we do have in the state. So a safe event, I all think it's a safe event.
Okay, exactly what would we be voting on?
I think at this point, if I'm gonna, let me try to recap. I think what Matt recommended makes a lot of sense to me, to see what happens in the summer with the ABC conference, and if the unified rules for bare knuckles fighting get passed, that shell of those rules, we could see what, and work on our Tennessee rules based on those, just in case the ones that we received from Adam have changed slightly by the time it passes. It at least gives us that solid document that's been passed, and we can continue then drafting our document. I'm not sure what you all would be voting on unless, Ben, your interest is to see the interest that the commission has in moving forward, and if that would be the motion, but we wouldn't be able, until the rules are finalized, to bring any true events to the state. But we can start that process and continue the research and then see what the unified rules look like, and then get you all a draft. It wouldn't be the meeting for June, it would be the meeting after that, would be my guess. So you all would get to decide, if you do want a motion, what does that motion look like? Is it just to show that you're interested as a commission? Because I think that after the last conversation, that was also the thought, that you are interested to continue the research to move forward. And so we already have the task to work on those rules. The question is, do we work on them based on this version that we have, or do we wait until after the unified rules are presented? And I like Matt's idea of waiting till we have that hopefully approved.
Roxana? David would like to hear you. Oh, David would like to add something if he could before they move forward.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I just actually want to ask a question. If you're going to wait until the unified rules are passed, hopefully this summer, is that 6 to 9 months from that time, or can we get the ball rolling with some of the rule changes that we know already, and just add any further rule changes that may be implied in July to the rule set? Or would we have to wait, like I said, 6 to 9 months come July or August?
So if we're going to wait and the commission prefers having those, yes, it would be until, we wouldn't touch anything. We would do our homework, we would start our research and drafting minor things, but we would not start moving a rule packet forward until we have that language. We don't, at all costs, we would avoid going back and forth with rules. That becomes confusing for the industry, for our legislative body. They will really prefer one package of rules from beginning to end that's very clear and clean, instead of just doing bits and pieces. That actually could end up stopping in its tracks and start all over. So for even efficiency, although 6 to 9 months after the summer meeting, which I think is in July, if I'm not mistaken, sounds like it's really far away, but it would be better to do it right than to have to come back and keep changing it.
Sure.
Can we make a motion that Pam begin a rule packet as soon as those rules are approved in July? Maybe that would save a couple of months at least. Yeah. I'll make that motion then, that upon adoption of unified rules at the next ABC conference, that the commission began drafting a rules packet immediately upon adopting any unified rules at ABC.
Can I just ask Adam a question?
We have a motion for our...
I just wanted to ask Adam a question real quick, because this might help a lot. Adam, aren't the rules just going to be voted, the recommendations that are already in place, aren't they just going to be voted on into becoming rules? Like we already have the rules in place that are being voted on. It's just a matter whether they recommend them or they, ask everybody to accept them as rules, correct?
That is correct. The only changes I foresee in any of them was just some timing issues and then just some definitions of a couple things, but nothing to the major overarching rules that are there. No changes.
In addition, if we wait until this is all passed and approved, if it isn't approved, then where does that leave us as far as doing events in Tennessee? I mean, I think it would make more sense to get the ball rolling now. That way, whether they're passed or not, there's potential for moving forward after the convention.
Yes, Dr. Mutzi, if I could say something real quick here. The only thing really we have left to vote on, like Adam says, timing issues. BKFC does 5 2-minute rounds. There's another promotion that wants to use 3-minute rounds and go to 7 rounds. And speaking to that, the only thing that I can say is all the medical data that I have presented to you all and that you've received is based on the 5 2-minute rounds.
Matt, I'm not sure if the clarification changed your motion. We've got a motion from you and the commission to possibly give Pam Spicer and legal the authority to start working on the rules, waiting on the final version from UFC to then move forward a rules packet, or is that not accurate?
I don't feel the need to alter my motion, but if someone else wants to propose a motion, I guess, going forward on the unified rules, then I guess they'd be free to, but I'm not going to amend my motion at this time.
We have a second for Matt's motion. We have a motion by Matt and a second by Ben, and this is waiting on the unified rules packet to be approved, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We have all of our members present and all in agreement. Pam has her pieces that she's working on, so I think we'll be getting the 15 states and starting to look into it and wait and look forward to the final language from the unified rules. Are there any other questions? And Mr. Williams, if you're on the call and had anything else, if you're with us, and I believe you are, I know you've heard a lot of back and forth. Anything new or different that you would like to add for the commission members to consider?
Not a whole lot. I have a lot of additional medical information. I've been doing bare knuckle events in the United States since 2007, and I was instrumental in getting Wyoming up and running, and have visited with a lot of other commissioners, including Adam, as he passed the rules in Kansas. So I'm an open resource. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me by email or call. The only thing I would add is time duration. I agree with the doctor and what David's doing. 5 rounds is a limit. The rules I sent you guys as an example were modeled after what Wyoming originally passed, which is why they had the 3-minute rounds listed. Nobody uses 3-minute rounds other than BYB. So the 2-minute rounds restricted to 5 rounds is where our safety window falls, I believe, and I would take that into consideration, and I will forward you guys all of my information. I have quite the installment of a book of data that I can send on to you guys.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams, and definitely I've got your information. If the commission members ask for any additional information from you, I'll make sure to reach out. Did we have any questions left on bare knuckles fighting? Okay. Hearing no other questions, commission members, I will let you turn your iPads to page, at the bottom, if you push on them, you'll get page numbers, or actually, I believe we start on information that Mr. Williams has provided regarding possibly 2 different rule changes. The first one is regarding bandages, and if you've got any questions, we know we can ask him. But he is recommending some red line versions to change the current rules that we have under 0145-02-.04 for bandages. And this has to do with the actual inches for the bandages. I'll let you all review and see if you are in agreement with something of this nature being drafted. This is his suggested language, not our attorney's. So obviously, here for us to talk about this proposal as well as the next page, which is time limitation changes, and ask any questions. I believe if we were to agree to change these, whether exactly as presented by Mr. Williams or slightly modified, we would do it as one rule package along with whatever else we move forward with bare knuckles fighting.
Is that a window I can speak to the commissioners now?
Here we go. In looking at the bandages portion and the red ink, it says that there is a tape, single rolled strips between the knuckles to secure knuckle pads. If it's bare knuckle boxing.
Now, these bandages are our current rules for boxing, not bare knuckle.
Okay.
This is bare knuckle.
That's what I wanted to be clear, because I looked at that and I went,
no, we don't have rules for bare knuckle. We're going to draft them and look at those. This is our current set of rules as they stand, with suggestions from Mr. Williams, who does box.
I got you.
Yeah. And also has a promoter license, I believe.
Yeah, to give you guys
You're
a
welcome.
quick background on me. Thank you, Miss. Quick background on me, I have 133 professional fights. I've competed in boxing, kickboxing, MMA, bare knuckle. I've fought in 18 different countries. I've tried just about every combat sport imaginable, including Lithaway, which a lot of people say is crazy, but I found it quite enjoyable. I have sat and done hand wrapping clinics for various commissions. Oklahoma has asked me to do it twice. I've done it in Colorado and in Wyoming. The hand wraps are a standard piece of safety uniform across the entire world, not just the Association of Boxing Commissions. And Tennessee is the only place that I am aware of that requires 1-inch tape. The 1-inch tape I do not agree with. It is not readily available to purchase. Your previous rules actually asked for medical tape, which isn't used in boxing at all. What is used is non-rigid woven tape. It's actually a cloth athletic tape, not a medical tape. So there's a lot of issues I find in the rules. And when guys travel from all over the world to Tennessee, I was recently involved in a show both as a matchmaker and part as a promoter, and competed on an event in February. And I was quite upset when I got there and had to rewrap a whole bunch of hands because you guys didn't follow the rest of the rules as far as the rest of the nation does. There's some distinct reasons why the wider tape is valuable. The thinner your tape, the more potential it has to constrict blood flow in your hand. It does strengthen stabilize the bones more, especially your metacarpals, which is the purpose for the hand wrap, for stabilizing your metacarpals and the small bones in your wrist, too many of them to mention. So the smaller tape is really an issue. It should be an 1.5-inch tape or 2-inch tape. as much as you can use. The wider the tape, the less restriction you have on blood flow, the safer it is for the athletes in their hands. So, that is my argument behind it. There are various other members of the commission that are licensed in the commission for the Commission of Tennessee that are present. I think Matt's there in person. He can speak to it as well. I think it's a make sense rule that unifies you with the rest of the world, not just the nation, in regards to hand wrap.
I can definitely make sure that everybody gets these rules, that we send them to the commission to give you a chance to process this change. Again, if we did move forward with this recommended language or something along the lines, it would be with the full set of bare knuckle fighting rules, if that makes sense. So we don't have to decide this today, because we will not start a set of rules and then start right back. That is detrimental, as I know you all understand. The next item would be the time limitations. There's some red line changes. We ran into this when it says 6 months instead of number of days. That does become a conflict. It's happened 2 different times. But there is a piece here that is relevant to statute that we cannot change, and that is on the bottom section where it says if a boxer loses 2 bouts by KO or TKO, scratching that out is not in compliance with the law, so we would not be able to do that. So this is obviously there for you all to review, but the attorney will stop us if we're trying to change something that the law doesn't match up to.
And just so you all have the reference, it's 68-15-404 that discusses, after examining each professional combatant who has lost as a result of a technical knockout or knockout, the ringside physician may require the combatant to undergo a neurological exam. So our statute provides for both, and the rule change that's recommended is taking out the TKO component.
And it's also offering the neuro as a secondary means
Which
of
wouldn't be
overriding
allowed under our statute, just to be clear.
But I understand that's a statutory change that we are looking to pursue as well.
So commission members, if you've got any other questions regarding these 2 items, I will definitely make sure that you have them. So as we proceed with writing rules, we can take these 2 into account as well and decide if this is the best way to write them. Any other questions before we proceed?
I would like to ask.
All right, thank you. Next, we are moving on to our, your iPads, the director's budget, and we have the joy of talking numbers now. We are starting on page 43. You have, since we didn't meet at the end of 2022, the last 4 years' final closing numbers. If you'll take a look at page 43, it shows us ending fiscal year 21-22 with a deficit of $39,874. The next item before you brings us through December as opposed to just the end of June, and we have a total deficit of $58,355. We've lost more in the subsequent months, but all this to kind of go back to what we've been talking about for a while, that unfortunately our smaller to medium events loses money almost every single time. We always need 3 field inspectors there. That's expensive to do. If you look at the breakdowns, we don't even have labor charged to this program. So the program is not even being charged the true expenses. So with all that in mind, we will definitely need to address and kind of talk about the self-sufficiency piece as well to tie together. And what we did on June 30th, the commission had to go before the legislative body because we were in the red, if you will, had a deficit for 2 consecutive years. As you're aware, that kind of puts us before them to have some conversations. Ben Grove was wonderful. He went with us, so it was Ben representing the commission. My boss, the Assistant Commissioner Alex Martin, was there, as was I. They understood the dynamic of obviously having the events and really wished us well, maybe is the best way to put it, in getting us out of being in the red and becoming self-sufficient. We presented different thoughts, and the easiest way to look at it would be some type of fee increase. And so I welcome ideas, conversations. I know when our chair, Dan McGrew, and I spoke, we talked and started thinking about ways to bring in additional events, maybe bigger events that can help us with those gate fees. The gate fees definitely, for the most part, stay in that bottom $500 amount or under $2,000, and it just doesn't cover for the events. Ben also was going to kind of start thinking about it, so I welcome those conversations, and then I will obviously start the research. What type of fee increases are we looking at for licensing, for events, for the permits, the gate fee? Those are all options. Fees increases to the licensing pool and the events would be in rule. That's an easier thing for us to tackle. The gate fees and that gross receipt tax is in the statute, but that obviously is where, when we have a bigger event, we can finally recover and have breathing room for a couple of months or sometimes a year. So I want to turn it over to the commission to get some ideas what else we can look at and go from there.
I had a quick question.
Yes.
So typically, as I understand it, one large event a year usually gets us back to at least even. Do we have any large events on the horizon that you're aware of?
Wonderful question. We do not. We had thought for a while that UFC would be having an event, and that didn't happen, so we haven't had one in a while.
Can I say someone has raised their hand, one of our promoters has raised his hand. Can we bring him up to the podium?
There we go. My name's Matt Young. I'm TriStar Boxing, but we do have a large event that is going to be on DAZN at the Municipal Auditorium. It is televised, so it will have a large television contract, which will probably be the largest grossing event Tennessee's had in the past since Caleb Plant fought for a world title here. So that is on the horizon on June 3rd. So that will be a DAZN event with a TV contract, which will have money. I don't know if it'll get us out of the red and into the black, but it will be. It's a crossover boxing event, so it's Misfits Boxing. It brings in social media boxers, MMA boxers. Everybody's licensed as a pro. We go through the same process, and I've already talked with Roxana quite a while. They're typically an 0-1 boxer, or 0-1 versus a 1-0. They're all evenly matched up, but they're social media influencers that have trained consistently throughout for boxing. They've got their federal ID, they meet all the statute requirement, but that genre of fighting is bringing in mega dollars when it comes to boxing. If you look at Jake Paul and Logan Paul, well, this company is owned by, that I'm representing is owned by KSI, who's a humongous social media star out of the UK. So great thing we got the direct flight from London to Nashville, because there's going to be a lot of people coming from London here for that fight. Just to let you know, I have an event in New Orleans, Louisiana on April 22nd, and we've already gotten a block of over 100 hotel rooms in New Orleans. So the company's moving along. I'm working with them in the U.S. market, doing numerous shows in states. Some states will not allow, they won't allow somebody to fight if they've never had a fight before. Tennessee does not have those rules in place, nor do half the states. There's just a few states that are highly regulated. For example, New York. New York wouldn't let some of our pro fighters who have had 5 or 6 pro fights even fight in New York. So those are the states that are not allowing this to happen. It's not that anything's unsafe. We're following everything like we always do. I've got Dr. Cherdak, who most of y'all know. She's our neurologist who does most of the fights in the state. Everything's going to be on the up and up. But yes, we are, and we're going to probably come back again. The gentleman I'm working for actually lives in Leapers Fork. So he's moved here from the UK. So Nashville is essentially home to him. And this is where he wants to do a couple of shows a year, which will be DAZN's the largest streaming app for sports in the world. So.
And did you say that June 3rd event, that's a done deal, or
it is a done
probable?
deal. We have an event permit for the municipal. We have a contract with the municipal. I'm probably going to be sending Katie bout requests where we get everything. I email her to make sure that the fights are vetted and that the matchups line up. And most of these individuals fighting. For example, Le'Veon Bell, who played for the Pittsburgh Steelers, he's fighting on a card, and he'll be fighting an 0-1 fighter. And those are the type of fights that generate a lot of interest from the public, and people want to come out and see. It's kind of but they train. That he's in the gym training every day, and he has the right to become a pro boxer as well, and he is. He's 1-0. So those are the type of fights we have. Frank Gore is another one. He's not fighting, but he's another NFL star who's transferring over to boxing. So you see a lot of that, of guys that are on the back nine of their career in another sport and then transferring over. So those are the types of folks that we're looking out to pursue.
How many seats are in the municipal?
There's 10,000. We're looking to do about 4,500 people is our goal and target from our numbers. We recently did a show in Austin, Texas. That was the first show in the U.S. But Misfits Boxing is sold out. The O2 Arena in Wembley. There's 14 days. They've got a 5-year contract with DAZN for 6 to 8 fights a year. So there's a lot of fights for the next 5 years that, Nashville specifically will probably see 1 or 2 fights a year for the next 4 or 5 years.
And you said that's a mixed event?
No, it's all boxing.
Okay.
Everything is all boxing. And there's no MMA or anything like that. It's just it's all pro boxing. But it's crossover fighters. They're not your Caleb Plants of the world type fights. But they generate huge amount of interest. Like I said, everything is done the exact same way, and everything follows all the rules and statutes that Tennessee provides. So, but yeah, we do have big events on the horizon. There's some other things I'm working on as well. So, and that's all it. The rules, Corey Williams and I have worked on rules, and some of those we do know have to get changed by statute. Like Roxana said, we ran into the issue on the we ran into the issue on the bandages, but we ran into the issue on what is 3 months. And Pam probably remembers this because I emailed and she made her decision. I told Roxanne I'm dropping my case and we'll just try to pursue the rules change. But in my mind, 3 months is 90 days, but it doesn't say that in our rules. So I got denied. The kid, if I could have, the spirit of that rule is if two knockouts in 3 months is about safety, right, for the fighter. Well, if you have a leap year or not a leap year in February, he could box in 88 days or 92 days, depending on the number of days. Well, my guy was going to box in 91 days, but it wasn't 3 months according to the calendar. But had it been a different set of months, it could have been 88 days. So we could have allowed a guy to fight after he'd been knocked out 2 times in 88 days, and my guy was at 91 days and wasn't allowed to fight. And that's where that rule's really, really gray and has to be changed. Again, when the rules packet comes out, we just need to put a number of days on it. And 90 is if everybody would say that 90 days is 3 months, but we didn't have a set of days on it. And that's where and in the blood work and everything else the state has, everything is specific on days in our rules, except for that one rule. It just says 3 months. There's no days on it. And that's all we want on that, is just to clarify it, to clean it up, to make sure everybody's on the same page. So we've ran into it, like I said, 2 times. It's a very rare occasion that it happens, but that's why we wanted that rule change on the time frame, because it wasn't clear on the number of days. So, but thank y'all so much. I appreciate what you do. There is a lot of other ways to, I do want to say one thing on revenue. It is in our rules. So there's rules, policies, and laws, if I'm correct. One of the things that kills us as promoters is having to have guys licensed 7 days out. But in our rules, it says we can charge more if they turn in their stuff after 7 days. But we don't do that. I say if you can't get your stuff in within 7 days before the fight and you turn it up to 48 hours before, tax the living daylights out of them. Charge them a heck of a lot more for licensing. It's not fair to Katie, but you know what? If the state wants to make more revenue, instead of a $50, make it a $300 late fee. You can get licensed $2 up to 48 hours before the event, but you're going to pay $300 to do it. And guess what? Either people will turn in their stuff on time or they'll pay the tax. And the tax creates extra revenue, but they shouldn't penalize a promoter on raising my fees on everything else because we're not generating money. One of the biggest complaints I've got from fellow promoters in Tennessee is boxing is so fluid. These guys change and have to get stuff done. In Tennessee, you have to have everything done on Tennessee forms, which I'm fine with. But fights fall out. We lose our main event 7 days out. Well, I'm out of a main event. I can't go get it replaced. If I could get that replaced, now I don't have to turn in, have to refund 400 tickets. Could you imagine Ty Tomlin losing his opponent, what that would do to a show? It would be detrimental. And if I could replace him and, pay a $300 late fee or whatever to get an opponent licensed 2 days before up to 2 days before the show, now we keep a ticket seller on the show that sold 1,000 tickets. So part of it is our policies, and I don't want to put any more burden on our licensing people, but if we had one or two fights like that and those individuals, the opponents got taxed heavily for turning in their stuff late, we could create a lot more revenue or not lose as much revenue from our promoter side and for the commission side, because if Ty was to lose his opponent, there's going to be 1,000 people not show up to the fight, and they're going to want their money back, and that's $50,000-$60,000 in revenue. And then when you do your gate tax on that, that's a lot of revenue the state could lose and make the show. There's other ways. One thing, I hold a promoter's license in 4 states. I've done shows in 8 states. Our athletic commission is awesome, but I have been to states and been to shows where we have more inspectors and more people at an event than any other state I've ever been to. And I don't know if we're overstaffed. I want it safe. I want inspections done, but I don't know if we have too many people at an event, especially some of these smaller events. And that's something that it's not my decision. That is completely up to y'all, but staffing on the commission side might be overstaffed. From what I've seen working with other commissions and working with other states, I might have one person in each locker room and 2 people ringside. And one person ringside checks their gloves as they walk in, but, we'll have 5, 6, 7, 8 people, and where you lose money is your personnel. So if we kind of fell in line with what some of the other states were doing, we're not Las Vegas. These aren't world title fights. If we did have a world title fight, we might increase our staffing. I don't know if there's a regulatory issue there on the staffing side, but I feel personally that we are overstaffed from what I've seen. And if you can reduce your personnel costs, that will absolutely save money. I've been there. I don't want to go to what Mississippi does, and I'd have their commissioner. He'd be the only one, and he'd check their gloves as they got in the ring. We don't need to go that far. But Kentucky will have one person in each locker room and 2 people ringside, and that's it. So they have 4 people for essentially a house show, a club show, not a big TV production. I would get 6 or 8 people working an event for a 500-person show. That's probably overstaffing, and that's probably costing money and revenue that could move us back towards the black. And so that's why I come up here to talk about revenue. So I was trying to help y'all out on some issues. Like I said, the staffing could definitely help, and we do have it in our rules where you can get your license up to within 7 days, and it does say you can pay extra in the rules, but it doesn't say how much the fine's going to be. It just says we can charge you more, and we don't do that. And I think we absolutely should do that and we should encourage everybody to get their stuff turned in prior to 7 days, because that's a headache for Katie. And I don't want to put any more stress on her, but as it stands right now, there's always 1 or 2 always lacking that are, the blood work comes in the Monday before the show. Tax them. If they don't have their stuff in, raise the fee on them. If these guys don't have their stuff done, make them pay. I'm all about it. Because if y'all are not solvent, I can't do shows. So I want to work out and be a partner and help y'all in any way I can to make sure that this commission stays solvent, because if y'all succeed, I succeed, and if I succeed, y'all succeed. And it's not just me, it's all the other promoters as well. One thing we did do when Corey and I got these rules, we did send them to every other boxing promoter to let them review as well. I made sure that everybody I knew that held a license for boxing in Tennessee got a copy of our proposed rules, because it's not fair for me to come up here and push something without a fellow promoter knowing if they're from East Tennessee or West Tennessee or vice versa. And I got zero negative feedback on anything we're trying to do. We know we got to get a couple of regulatory things changed within the state laws. We're going to get those laws written and push them through the legislature next year, or attempt to. That's a whole different ballgame right there. I don't know, can we do that in conjunction with the Athletic Commission for law change, or do we need to do that on our own? I know in the past we have.
Law change wouldn't come through the commission. Yeah. You would decide to reach your representative directly if you want a law change.
Okay, because I remember that when Glenn was here, there was a couple law changes that we had suggested, and he had gotten passed through the legislature. So I don't know if that's, you can't do that. Okay. It would be good if we have a proposed law change, if we could present it to y'all and get a stamp of approval from the commission, that when we go to the legislature, that the commission would adopt this or is in favor of this. That would absolutely help us. And again, we don't want to change laws that are detrimental to the sport without y'all's blessing as well. It's a partnership. It's not it's not us trying to dictate laws to change y'all's mind on stuff. We want to make sure that what we're doing is what y'all's vision is as well. So those rules that we've submitted that need laws changed, if y'all are in favor of them, please give us feedback so we can try to get that the commission is in favor of these passing, because that will absolutely help us get the laws passed. If they know that the Athletic Commission is on board and that this will help the sport, then, for example, the blood. Blood is invasive. You're sticking a needle in somebody's arm. There's more of a chance for that catheter to get stuck in that arm than you are to contract HIV in the ring. That is absolute science. That's not even disputable. You're more likely to get that catheter stuck in your arm during a blood draw than you are contracting HIV. HIV dies when it touches oxygen. So we require more blood work than any other state in the country. Most states, the standard is 1 year. We're saying let's go to 6 months. That's reducing the number of times I have to have a fighter have a needle stuck in their arm by 4, because they'd have to get it every 90 days for Tennessee. So those are some laws that we have to get changed, but those are the laws that I would like to see us work on together to send to the legislature, as in that the commission agrees with this change and maybe a letter endorsing this law change. And I don't know, Pam might be able to, because y'all can't do that per se, but something, does that make sense what I'm trying to say? Or can they do that?
Pam, is he correct that everything else is defined in days except for this one spot that's defined by months?
I mean, I would have to look through the entirety of the statute. I know what he is referring to, but I'm not going to go on record and say everything else in the statute is by a number of days.
And it would be statutory to change?
Correct.
Well, I make a motion that commission would support you going forth to speak with the representative about changing 3 months to 90 days.
I don't know that as a commission.
Just statement of support. I mean, we don't have an issue with.
I mean, he can go and speak with his representative at any time. He doesn't need the blessing of the commission, to do that.
He's asked if we support him. I mean, personally, I support you going in and lobbying for that. No one else has to second it.
The issue is they're going to come to me and go, what does the commission feel? And if I had a letter of support saying we can't change these rules because these are statutes, but we are in favor of this being changed. If it was just a form drafted letter that y'all are in favor of it, then when I go to a representative, they'll go, oh yeah, well I'll do, because they only get so many bills a year they want to do, and they don't want a bill that has any financial note, and they don't want a bill that's not going to pass. And if I go there on my own and they go, what does the commission think? Well, I don't know. They're not going to make it one of their bills, and we're never going to move forward. And this is why we're not making money. I mean, you got to get a lot of these things corrected, and it's not the commission's fault. It's the laws that are hindering us. And if I go to my local representative and say, I have the endorsement of the Tennessee Athletic Commission, but it's a law and they can't change it. It's that you have to change it and they support it. They'll go, well, if they support it, then I'll support it. And that's the issue that I have. I'm going in there blind or paying a lobbyist tens of thousands of dollars, which this is $0 is costing the state to do this, to change the law. There's no fiscal note attached to it. So, but with the blessing of the commission saying we endorse these law changes, if they were to come up, would be absolutely huge. And I don't necessarily say this one. I would love to get whatever 4 or 5 laws we can figure out that need to get changed and put them in one thing to send to the state that y'all agree. I mean, I might want a law change that y'all don't want changed, and y'all might not want to endorse that one, and I'm fine with that. But I think we work together. When we work together better, or when we work together, we get stuff accomplished, done better than we do when we're trying to all do it on our own. And that's the consensus I've got by talking with other promoters. These laws aren't something that Matt Young wants. This is what, Dustin Long wants. This is what Brandy McCain wants. This is what Corey Williams wants. I mean, I've gone and talked to the other promoters about the issues, and we're all in agreement.
I appreciate you bringing the event to the state in particular, and certainly want to do anything we can to help you. I don't think we can issue a letter or a request that legislation be done. I guess I'll just go on record. I personally support you talking to your representative. Sounds like a no-brainer. If everything else is defined by days, that this should be defined by days as well. I don't know if I can do anything more than that for you.
Corey, did you want to add something?
Yes. Is my mic undone here? You guys hear me? Yeah. Okay. I believe in most states that. Is that better? Oh.
Try that again.
You guys hear me there?
We can hear you now.
Hello?
That's all I've got, so I'll just
Thank you,
sit
Matt.
down. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
You have someone that had a question on Teams?
Yes, Corey was he was trying to speak. I think he has his mic fixed now.
Yes, I do. Thank you. In most states, the rules and regulations are in addition to the laws. So I would think, by the definition in most states, you would be allowed to do something that added to a law, as long as it didn't take away from it. So I don't see how you couldn't say that 3 months is defined as 90 days as an emergency rule, and then assist us in pushing the legislature to clarify that, because most of the other rules do say that. I don't know that all of them do, but I've seen several of them where it says 30 days here or 60 days on something else, and it doesn't define it as far as that rule goes. So I think it would be appropriate personally to make that as an emergency adjustment, if allowable under the state law.
I just want to reiterate that the part of the statute that is also a problem, based on what these folks are recommending be changed, is the TKO and the KO. In our statute, it discusses TKO and KO, and they are recommending that we remove the TKO component in addition to the time limitation. And the TKO and the KO is in our statute.
Could we separate those issues? Because the days really does seem like a no-brainer. It just helps clarify, probably takes some work off of your office when there's some confusion. And I think all of I think all of us are in agreement that that's something that we would support, an immediate change, and possibly that does not require, well, certainly in this case, I think we all support it, so we wouldn't need to review further.
Would we even need a rule change? Could we make a motion that we feel like 3 months should be construed as 90 days?
Absolutely. The question then would be, and that is in rules, so that isn't clashing with the law, that is in our purview and makes perfect sense. Even when I had to say to Matt, this is 3 months, it isn't 90 days the way it's written. The issue is if we're going to push forth rules to add bare knuckles fighting, and that's coming around the pipeline, they're going to kind of travel together. That has a downside. If you're before preparing rules that move through in 6 months and then another set of rules that start, that has been problematic. It becomes confusing for everyone. That's the only reason I said I would recommend that we move the bare knuckles fighting with these days and whatever we decide on the bandages together. So it's one clean package of rule changes.
In the meantime, is it appropriate to make a motion that a policy or procedure be in place for the office to interpret 3 months as 90 days?
I think the issue remains that it's in the rule specifically that particularly related to the time limitations, which is what we're referring to, about the 3 months versus 90 days and the 6 months versus the 180 days. In my opinion, that can't be changed by policy because it's already in the rule.
Can we address it as an emergency rule change then? I mean, that every state has the possibility
And then
for an
just to
emergency
reiterate
rule
what
change.
Roxana was saying, if we are looking at rule changes anyway, and whether it be this in addition to a bare knuckle package or whatever it is that we are requesting be changed, it is definitely the preference to have one rule packet traveling at a time.
Would the 90-day change affect your upcoming ballot? Okay, so it's already.
It continuously happens.
Okay.
When we have a fighter that's been knocked out, and I'm looking at it from, I say common sense, because 3 months is 90 days, in my opinion, because.
Sure, I think we.
And that's where, and it just
sounds like
occasionally happens where
we're
you just
fine
have
with.
one fighter, and I'm going, oh, they're 90 days out, and I'm counting the days. Oh, they're good. No, and this is like a fighter got knocked out on August 18th and got knocked out on again in November 18th, and then we want to fight on January 17th. Well, it was 90 days, or, it's beyond but it wasn't 3 months because it wasn't the 18th of the 18th.
Okay. I just making sure.
That's where the issue comes in.
Just making sure it wasn't like an immediate need for you.
No, there's no immediate need. This is just something that needs to get cleaned up.
Well,
And I think we will. We will move
Okay.
forward with one set of rules.
All right. Do you need a motion to redefine anything as months, as days in the rule packet we're going to do this summer? Okay.
I think we'll move it forward. I'm going to bring us back to the self-sufficiency piece in case there are any questions from the commission. I loved hearing that Matt's got a big event. I think we talked about dates, and I thought for some reason it had changed. I don't know that one will get us out of the red, but it's something that I think it's a good time for us to discuss, and maybe I do look at rule increases so that when we have the rule package, you as a commission can look at it and see what makes sense. I liked the idea of penalizing. That sounds great, even though we're really not about that. The issue is almost every single promoter asks for an extension, cannot get their paperwork done 7 days in advance. I'm often explained how this industry is volatile, like I don't know that it is, and until the very last minute, things are turned in late. So we are actually considerate toward the promoters picking up the fees and try not to increase those penalties. The only penalty that is in our statute that we're allowed is $25. Now, $25 is not going to easily get us out of a $60,000 debt. I hate to say that. But what we do is the day of the event, if the seconds have not been licensed, that is where that fee comes in. And even then, we hear well, I'll do it on my phone so I don't have to pay that. So it is a little tricky to add the penalty, and generally speaking, we're not about that. But that is something to consider. If the commission decides that's what we'll do is increase penalties, then across the board, we'd have to do that. Yes?
Well, rather than penalties, what about, what it seems like to me is we're talking about a convenience fee.
And that's what it's really referred to as, yes.
So it might be appropriate to have a convenience fee, with 6 to, let's say, 1 day before, and then an additional fee on top of that if it's the day of. Because I know some research has to go into verifying their information and things like that. So obviously, additional time is needed, and yeah.
And one of the issues that we have is we really don't want to get everything closer to the event date. That 7 days allows us, and again, I've got 9 programs I regulate. Katie works on 4. So what I think is difficult for the industry to understand is that Katie needs to roll from one event to the next. If she is waiting the 4 to 5 days before then, she's done the next event a disservice, because where they're trying to get ahead of things, then we're behind on everything. So I really would hate to see us get everything at the last minute just for that extra money, because we're not even picking up the labor costs. So we've got other industries then that are picking up this athletic commission money being jeopardized. So I would love for us to stay to the 7 days, maybe re-educate and keep, encouraging, pushing. The convenience fee is what we call it for the $25 doing late. But, just address from every perspective. Again,
there is the practical matter of this as well, which is that opponents do fall out for a variety of reasons within that 7 days. So I would love to see a proposal from your office about what would be reasonable. Maybe instead of 7 days, there's a convenience fee period, but within, I don't know, it would be up to your office, but within 36 hours or 48 hours or something, then it would cut off at that point. That would still give the promoter some time to replace an opponent.
Do you mind if I add to that? So a lot of when we do get things later, so say if the cutoff date's Friday and say we receive it on Tuesday, I'll receive it on, have their nurse persons over. Oftentimes, too, I'll have an eye exam, but it's not checked off yes or no by the doctor. So I'll receive it on that Tuesday. The event's probably on a Saturday. They've got to then get that combatant to go back to the doctor, get that checked off. That combatant may have a job that they're working on. A lot of times it's not so much processing the paperwork, it's then referring back to them, hey, this is what's missing from that. Now you've got a shorter time to take that back to the doctor. It's already late on a Tuesday. That's a lot of times what we're at that point, that inspectors may have to, don't know how to. That's what we run into a lot of times, having stuff late. It's not so much getting it late and like, hey, we've got to do that. It's a lot of the stuff's not correct when it's sent in.
So it sounds like we already have a convenience fee to do it late, though, right?
the convenience fee is when they are paying online and paying the day of the event. And we try to just license our seconds the day of the event because we need the physical and the blood work and all of that. We have it in there. It's a $25 amount. That's the maximum we're allowed to charge right now in our rule. The other piece, again, is the follow-up with the profession is difficult. The gate fee, for example. We rarely get the late fee. I mean, it's due. We're supposed to get the information the day of the event. I can't think of one where we do that. They just don't give us those numbers. Within 10 days, we really need to see those receipts. 30 days is by rule. Katie often continues following up 3, 4, 5 months later. And so the thought that we're going to penalize them these late fees for convenience and them actually paying and getting to the event with the bouts is tricky. We can't get them to finish the receipts without several follow-ups. So, but I think these are all good conversations to have and to think about, and at least that way when it comes to our rule packet, if we're pushing for rules to go up, we have a good gut feeling that these are the rules, these are the fees that need to go up and why. If we had really dedicated people, if we functioned the professional a little bit differently, maybe it'd be easier to wait for things till the last minute, but it becomes very problematic when and we just don't want to risk missing something, right?
How much roughly are we losing per event?
So to kind of clarify on Matt's point, we have 3 inspectors at every single event, regardless. The only time we have 7 is for a big event or event that we have a concern, meaning things were done so last minute that we want to make sure everybody's protected. Oftentimes, our supervisor is who goes. We don't pay for his salary, so we juggle. Not a penny of my salary is charged, Pam's, our supervisor. Again, not necessarily the great thing, but those salaries are not being charged to this program. When we get into making a profit or staying solvent, then we will charge payroll correctly. But at this time, if we've got 3 people going to a small event, if there is only one event, let's say it's East Tennessee, if there's only one event, that's not going to cost us that much. It may cost us $1,000 to $1,500, $2,000. The gate fee should cover it. If it's the permit itself is $300, so we can break even. If you have 2 events in one same section of the state, that's where the issue is, because we're moving people from another part and they have to stay there. We pay their mileage. That's where we could lose $2,000 to $3,000 on just one event. And we don't really want to turn down a date if we don't have to, but it is first come, first served. So the reason that event date is so important is that's where we can see, are we moving our part-timers and going to have to get a hotel for them, and are they going to move? That's the other reason that you often have 3 or 4 people. Our part-timers are training to make sure they can cover each other. While they're training, that is a cost, but then at least it frees us up to have 2 or 3 events at the same time.
And if we have to move someone across the state to do that event, is it possible to charge that event? If they're the second event that booked, could we just tell them ahead of time, you can have this date, but you'll have to pay the extra costs on the labor?
So that flexibility right now by rule, we're not allowed. But that is something, if we open these rules, that we can look at. If it's a prime date, whatever we call it, can that be a convenience fee for the event, for the fact that we're sort of booked too much in West or East Tennessee and don't have the manpower, and that does impact us. That's where there's a cost, absolutely. So I think those are good things to think about, so that if by June we have at least a draft of motion, I can start researching and looking at options.
What do you call a large event?
So Matt mentioned when Caleb, one of the last events that we had a media check. We've had a couple, one 50,000, one 84,000. That's a large event. That's going to hold us easily for at least that year in our budget.
Okay, as far as inspectors,
yes.
Now you normally have 3 inspectors and 3 judges.
We don't pay for the judge. So the judge is the promoter's expense, your ringside official.
The promoter pays for them and the referee.
Yeah. The field inspectors are technically our staff. That is who we would pay and possibly have to reimburse mileage and those kind of fees.
So you have one in each, do you have one in each dressing room checking the hand wraps?
Correct.
And then you have, don't you have 2 at ringside?
Yes. But the one, after they've done the fitting rooms, they come in with them, then you don't need 2. You can also take turns. One's on each corner, and the other one is making sure that we get the score, in charge of the scores.
Okay. And you said that sometimes you have some that are training?
Correct. So in this last year to a year and a half, we've been trying to use part-timers more so than the full-time staff, and they've trained at different events to make sure that they can cover.
Now, they generally make, what is it, $100 a show?
I couldn't tell you.
Something like
It's by hours. And they're also paid to be at the weigh-in. So that's also, the day before would be the weigh-in.
And most of those inspectors generally live in the Nashville area, I believe.
Or throughout the entire state.
Well, not that, I don't know of that many, though. I mean, how many of the inspectors are like from East Tennessee, Knoxville area? I don't know any from Knoxville area, or maybe one from Memphis area.
We have at least 18 part-time and full-time individuals we use throughout the state. So the part-timers we actually balance to be from all of the divisions, so that we aren't paying for their travel. Back to your point, yeah.
Okay, because usually when I go to an event, I usually see the same ones working. Do you split it up, or just is it on a seniority thing, or who works what event?
So the field inspector supervisor, Dawn, does split them based on if it's a full-time person. For example, you're in East Tennessee. If James is covering that area, then we would need 2 others that are hopefully part-time or that are in that area. And he does fluctuate them. If they're available, if they're not on vacation, if they're full-time staff and do inspections and can't flex. So he looks at all of those things.
One other thing, as far as getting big shows to the state, what exactly is, I know perception is a big thing, whether, you know, right or wrong, but perception is a really big thing as far as getting big shows to come to Tennessee. Now, I know that the Department of Tourism, I believe, handles a lot of big events, music events and things such as that. Do they play any role in bringing, like, they don't play any role in helping to bring boxing or MMA to the state of Tennessee? They play no role in bringing big shows here?
Not at this time. They might be bringing other events that, for hotel rooms and that kind of thing, but nothing directly for the Athletic Commission.
Are there any kind of incentives that could be given to big events or promoters to come to the state of Tennessee?
Not through us, not through Commerce and Insurance. I don't know directly what the Department of Tourism does to bring in basketball games to Middle Tennessee, that kind of thing.
Okay. Would it be like maybe a conflict of interest to, if commission members would talk to some promoters and maybe asking them about bringing an event to the state of Tennessee?
In your individual capacities, you can speak to whomever you would like to speak to about encouraging people to come to Tennessee.
I think we just couldn't make money off of it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Couldn't make money off of it or promise them any incentives to come here? Correct.
Correct.
Hmm.
But Roxanne, I think you and I had spoken before about it would be good to speak with some larger promoters to just try to get some information on maybe why they don't come to Tennessee, whether it's just the audiences they're looking at or whether it's like certain fees or something, like if it's the taxes or there may be like one issue that we're not thinking of that's stopping a big promotion from coming. So just asking those questions of the bigger promotions if we have the opportunity.
I've been dealing back and forth with this group for almost 60 years, okay? Seen a lot of fights come and go. One of the things that happened years ago was they had a professional match that was big time, like Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson, that size kind of a fight. And one of the local color folks on there made fun of our state. Like we do everything from behind. And that has held with folks that I've talked to, because I'd love to get UFC back in here, big time, okay? I was talking to, earlier today, to Mr. McGrew over here. West Tennessee can't get a good fight because the casinos come up. If they hear you're promoting, they'll come up and make you a better deal. And so I said in Memphis, and I've got karate tournaments and things like that. But we can't go after the big market because there's someone bigger right around the corner. I think that is a consideration. I think that years ago there was the reputation that maybe things went slower down south. And I think in some cases that reputation still hadn't left. I really do. Now, do we deserve it? Heck, no, we don't deserve it. No. And talking about the inspectors and stuff at the fights, I was one for 8 years, okay? I loved it. I know the fights, and there's going to be fights this weekend in Memphis, MMA matches. And I go back at every fight just because I love it. And the number of people that we've had doing our work for us hadn't appeared to me to be too many at all, not by a long shot, because you get a lot of different things that happen back in that dressing room aside from hand wraps. There's PEDs that we're supposed to watch out for. We're supposed to be sure that the athletes aren't doing wrong things before they go and fight. That's the job of the inspector. And to reduce the number is going to feed right into that. You want people talking about us being backward? They'd be talking about us being backward. We need the inspectors. A couple of years ago, and you will remember, I had something to say about some of them, and I got chastised big time for saying anything. But I got nothing to lose, guys. I've been around a long time. I'm going to be around a long time. I love what I do. I love this state. I've gone to karate school for a little over 60 years, okay? I love it. I don't need to do any other job because this state, you guys that allow us to promote good fights, keep my business going, and people love it. People love what we do. Guys like that fellow over there, people love us for what he does. And so, yeah, hey, dude, I support you, okay? I really do, and I wish you good luck. I think we will do everything we can because I agree with you. What helps you helps us. I really do. Thank you.
Need a motion to accept the budget, or is this just like information purposes?
No, just information. And I think I've got some good ideas of what else to look for so that by September I can give you at least some numbers, some ideas of what we shoot for. Okay, before I turn it over to Pam for the legal, this is our first meeting of the year, so we do need to elect a chair and vice chair. I welcome any conversations, motions, and that'll set us up for the last 3 meetings, I think, of the year.
Is Mr. McGrew eligible to remain on?
I don't think we have a statute that limits it for this program at all, and Mr. McGrew is our current chair. No, I don't think so. So he's eligible if you wish to
nominate. The procedure?
That is.
Hey, Mr. McGrew to stay on.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Christy Halbert and a second by Matt Reddish to nominate Dan McGrew to stay on as chair. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Thank you. Next, we need a vice chair. If we could have a nomination, please.
Who is it currently?
I believe, Mr. Wren, you're vice chair right now? Yeah.
A motion, Mr. Wren, for vice chair.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Matt and a second by Christie to nominate Patrick Wren to stay on as vice chair. All those in favor for vice chair, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? None? Congratulations, Mr. McGrew and Mr. Wren. Thank you for everything. That takes care of that formality. I will turn it over to Pam Spicer now for the legal report. You have 6 cases on your iPads. Let me know if you have any questions.
And I will briefly go through these. I know that they're on your iPad, but I will take you through the 6 briefly. Number 1 is complaint number 2022-048821. I have recommended a letter of warning. This is about failure to complete a contractual obligation regarding payment, but same has now been received by the complainant. So I still recommended a letter of warning just due to the delay in receiving the payment. And we can, unless you all have questions about each one, we can just take the motion vote at the end to approve it.
Who was the complainant? Was it like a venue or, I don't understand the relationship from reading the summary.
I can have my paralegal check on that and we'll go through it. He's here in the room because I don't recall. Chris, can you check that? Okay. He'll come up and let me know in just a minute, for clarification purposes. If there are no other questions on number 1, I'll go to number 2 while he's checking. Number 2 is 2023-003241. This one is a combatant that fought after being suspended, so I've recommended a consent order with a civil penalty of $500. If no questions on that, I'll move to number 3, which is 2022-049301. This is a complaint from a consumer alleging that there was an event being held that was unsafe. This event is a professional wrestling event not regulated by the commission, so I've recommended closure. If no questions on that, we can discuss 4, 5, and 6 and then return to number 1. On 4, 5, and 6, those are represents. All of the same promoter whose license is currently suspended. However, the license has expired and has not been renewed. I filed the notice of hearing and charges. All attempts at personal service have failed. Therefore, the judge continued the matter indefinitely. However, I do not believe, based on the service attempts that have already occurred, that I'll be able to obtain service. And given the fact that the license is now expired, I'm recommending close and flag on 4, 5, and 6.
And you did say those are all the same promoter, correct?
Correct.
I did have a question on number 3. Does that information not appear on Fight Facts when someone's been suspended?
Number 2.
Number 2.
Oh, number 2, yeah. Yes, number 2, thank you.
As I recall this complaint, there was an issue, there was a delay in when it showed up online versus what we had. So it would still be the requirement for them to tell us, and they didn't.
And on number 3, who does regulate professional wrestling in the state of Tennessee?
As far as I know, there's no regulation, these professional WWE, whatever it is, events that occur. There may be some local component to that, you know, as far as it's the entertainment fighting is what we're referring to.
On number 2, I mean, did they lie on their application that they weren't suspended, or were they already licensed and just didn't notify us?
I would have to look to confirm if it's the application.
No. I think what it is they thought, but by the time, when we vetted the card, they were not suspended. They had a fight between the time we vetted it and before that fight, like a couple of days before. And that's the fight that they lost that they should have reported. That's where there was a lag of time in the site reflecting it correctly.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I remember the case for 4, 5, and 6. Since her license is now expired, what would be the next steps? Do they have a path to getting in front of us to try to resubmit an application, or?
What would happen is if the respondent attempted to renew, she could come before the board before the license is renewed.
Okay, that seems fair.
And on number 1, that was the combatant. That was not paid timely.
Is it within our rules that, I mean, the promoter has to pay the combatant, or is that more of just like a contractual dispute? Kind of feel like that's not particularly in our purview unless we have a rule that states they have to pay them.
It is. They need to pay within I can't
Okay.
remember the exact language, but yes.
Okay. I motion to accept the legal report then.
I second it.
Thank you. We have a motion by Matt Reddish and a second by Dr. Christy Halbert. All those in agreement of accepting the legal report as presented by Pam Spicer, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That takes care of the legal report. On our agendas, I do have legislative updates just in case, because we're present with legislative session. I want to make sure if there's a bill introduced that impacts the Tennessee Athletic Commission that we discuss it, but there's nothing at this time. So I do not have any new business to address either. I turn it over to the commission if you have any other questions or points you'd like us to review before we adjourn.
Ray Williams wanted to say something.
Yes, Mr. Williams.
I'd like to chime in on your commission's policies and with the timing of medicals and when stuff is due. You know, you guys are talking about trying to recruit larger events and get some additional promotions coming on into the state. There's multiple levels of making that happen, and the quickest way to run promoters out of your state or prevent them from coming is to make licensing difficult. And your 7-day rule, I understand you guys are overworked and understaffed. I sympathize to that. But I can tell you right now, the reason you do not have Don King, Top Rank, Goosen, any of those major promoters bringing any events to your state is because of that 7-day rule. That is a fact. I have spoken to several of them. It makes our job absolutely difficult, very near impossible to put a fight card together. And because of that, that's why you're not getting them. I mean, every state in the nation, they pre-vet every fight that they can prior to you getting there. Changes are going to happen during that last week. Medicals are due before the weigh-in. Anywhere you go, no more than 72 hours before the event are your medicals due. And the reasoning for that is because of those changes. We had 3 fights that we had to pull off of our most recent card because they were fighters from out of the country that we were flying in for the event, and we couldn't get their medicals done because of language barriers, among other things. You know, if we could have pulled them in on Wednesday, did all their medicals and had them all turned in before the weigh-in on Thursday for a Friday event, then we wouldn't have had this. We wouldn't have had as many issues as we had matching this card. I lost close to $8,000, just shy of $8,000 on this event and fights that did not happen because of the way your rules are structured. And that's very frustrating to me. And that's part of why I got so upset in the locker room, having to step up and fight on a show that I was involved in because of the challenges I had with the commission. I find that frustrating, and if you guys could correct that, you would see a lot more promotions come in. In addition
Thank you,
to,
Mr. Williams. We've taken note of that. Thank you.
okay.
I'd like to ask Mr. Young if you could come up. I'll take a couple more questions. Do you concur with that? Is one of the, or maybe the reason why we don't have huge events, championship events, or what's your take on that?
Absolutely. Dean Toole called me a few weeks ago, and he was wanting to do an event here, and that was one of his biggest concerns is, you know, with COVID, opponents were falling out all the time. COVID changed the world. And in boxing, I lose my main event because this guy's got COVID. Well, I can't get him replaced. Well, now we're just out of luck. You know, and that's the world we live in. And COVID isn't gone anywhere. It's still here. And, you know, you're putting a burden on the promoter of tens of thousands of dollars to, oh, yes, I can have an alternate opponent, but I have to pay to get them medically licensed. I have to pay to get them licensed. I have to fly them here. I have to put them in a hotel room. So now I'm out thousands of dollars. And then I got to pay them whether they fight or not just to be here versus just replacing so-and-so on the card. That is detrimental. You know, Lou DiBella holds a promoter's license here. He's come here and done a show. We've done a show with him. That was one of his team's frustrations is there's only a couple of states that use core. Florida uses core, but their core is a lot less than our core. I understand we're not getting away from how we license, but when you go to California and you have a carbon copy sheet, a trifold sheet of a license, and you do it on the spot, and I hand you my medicals, Louisiana, I just have to provide PDFs of the medicals to the commission, submit it by email, and they license the day of the event. I mean, and it's the ease of business and the mindset of Tennessee, and I know Governor Lee he wants business to thrive and he wants it to be less restrictive, and Tennessee is very restrictive. I hate to bring up Jeff Mullen. When he was here, it was great. And Jeff has the most prestigious job of all of boxing. He is the chairman, executive director to the Nevada Athletic Commission. He's a friend of mine. I know you've known for a long time. But he's done, you know, and I know we're not Nevada. Right. We're not California. You know, Andy Foster came from Georgia to California. So that mindset of the South runs slower. Two of the biggest athletic directors in the world have come from Georgia and Tennessee. But the restrictions on business is what hurts us. That 7-day rule kills us. Every medical on a Tennessee medical form kills us. Because I have a fighter, you know, Georgia will accept Tennessee medical forms. Mississippi will accept Tennessee forms. Louisiana will accept Tennessee forms. Florida will accept, but Tennessee won't accept anything of Tennessee except unless it's on a Tennessee form. Now, we've worked really hard on reducing some stuff. Used to have turn everything in a 30-day window. Now it's a 90-day window, so that's really helped us out. We're moving in the right direction. We really are. So I'm not venting, but the neuro, you know, most states don't have a neuro form. They use a Tennessee neuro form because they don't have one, which is a good thing. I think it shows that we're a leader in what we do, but the 90-day rule, Tennessee also is the only state I know that grants a 2-year license, which is awesome. I wouldn't want to change that for anything. I think if you've had an eye exam, a sports physical, and a neuro if you're over, I'd like to see that number go from 35 to 40. That's a law change, not a rule change. I've spoken hours and hours with Dr. Cherdak on that, and we've been round and round about it. And, you know, the problem is you have Matt Young. I'm 41. I've got an amateur bout, but I don't have a pro bout. How many headshots have I taken? Do I really need a neuro to become a pro boxer? Now, if I was 38, you know, now I'm 41, so now you're above the age where it matters. But I actually submitted something to Glenn Kopchak several years ago that we require, is it 300 rounds or 35 years of age? I wanted to reduce the number of rounds to, say, 250 and increase the age to 40, because there's those 37-year-olds that have maybe I kind of like Mike Bissett. You know, you remember Mike. He's over 35. He hadn't had that many rounds. He's not been knocked out by headshots. A few body shots here and there. But does he really need a neuro? I mean, some of these guys, and it's a burden. To get a neuro exam, you have to go to your primary care physician. You have to get referred. A neuro is a specialist. So going out of state for these fighters is extremely hard to get neuros. I am super blessed. If we have a fighter in Tennessee, I say, you're driving to Murfreesboro and we're going to get you an appointment with Dr. Cherdak. She's the fight doctor, and she does the neuros for most everybody that I deal with in Tennessee. I would love it if, in Corey's case, these individuals that need neuros, if she's going to be my fight doctor, why not let her do a neuro the day before? That would be huge. And it's on a Tennessee form by the doctor that's actually going to be there watching the fighter fight.
Right.
And it solves the problem of, yes, we're going to get a neuro on them, but that 7-day rule is killing us on some stuff. And the neuros are extremely hard to get because of you have to get referred by your primary care, and you have to schedule it. I called for a fighter in West Virginia. They said, well, it won't be till August till we can get you in for a neuro. I'm like, well, that guy's out. I can't use him. So, I mean, it just makes it harder to do our job, and within a budget. We don't have unlimited dollars. And
we understand that.
And to speak of the foreign stuff, one thing we all talked about UFC, and I got to bring this up because this is crazy. We had an issue with visas, and this was right before Roxana came back for this, for her. Is this your second stint?
I've never left.
You never left. You just had Glenn as your right-hand man. There we go. But she remembers the visa issue. I had to get an opinion from the U.S. State Department stating that a B visa, a tourist visa, is acceptable to box in because they were having to have a P1, which is like what Canelo Alvarez has or Ronaldo has for soccer. We were literally making somebody have to earn $1 million to be able to get a visa to be able to box in Tennessee, where the State Department said absolutely not. They fall under it's prize money, just like a horse jockey. We got that opinion sent, and then the legal gets involved, and you got to balance this, and over time that rule got changed because there was an issue with UFC fighters where there was like 10 that didn't have the correct visas at one time, and that really was almost detrimental to their show of coming here, and we got that fixed. That was just making sure everybody was on the same page with visas.
Right.
So we're improving, but the medicals are killing us.
Well, we hope to make a lot of changes to make Tennessee a lot more attractive to bigger shows coming in. We appreciate what you do.
Reach out to me, any of y'all. I'll give you my email. I'd love dialogue. It's not my show. It's not another person's promoter's show. It's what we can do together. So
well, thank you very much. We appreciate you. And I think there's really no reason why Tennessee couldn't have 2 big events a year. I mean you have these Memphis and Nashville, of course, and the Knoxville area. I mean, I've talked to some ex-pro boxers that want to come to the state of Tennessee. Want to put a show on there. So there's no reason why we can't have at least 2 really big shows a year, and I think that would really help us as far as financially.
I like Ben's idea of having a separate fee if they're within the 7 days. If we can work that through a rule, I'd be in support of that. Maybe we can discuss that next meeting.
I'd even be fine with making it more than 300 to make up for the extra labor y'all are going to have to do. I mean, from what they're saying, if they're losing $8,000, like 500 or 1,000 is not, they're going to jump at it.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Matt and a second by Dan to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 It is 4:08. Thank you very much. This was very informative and great information. Thank you, Commission members. We will see you, I think June 12th is our next meeting. Thank you.